What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce you to our new series, Stat of the Week, powered by Chartmetric. Today's stat is 5 times platinum, which is the certification that Greatest Love Story just received on January 28th, 2025. That was just last week for those of you keeping track. It's an incredible milestone, especially considering our guest today wrote it 100% by himself. If you want to uncover insights like this for yourself, head to chartmetric.com. Now, back to the show. Thanks. Today's guest is my buddy, Brandon Lancaster. You know Brandon as the lead singer and frontman of the band Lanco, from his songs Greatest Love Story, Born to Love You, and so many others. In this episode, we talk about Lanco's new record, We're Gonna Make It, which just released back in January. We talk about his very fortuitous meeting with producer Jay Joyce, the joys of being in a band, writing songs, and so much more. I really enjoyed this conversation with Brandon. I know you guys are going to love it. So without further ado, here he is, Brandon Lancaster. Thank you for being here, first of all.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's good to see you. We toured together in 21,
Yeah.
I think. And then I feel like the last time we hung out was at like Red Door. And that was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Had you started this when we were at Red Door? That was 2 years ago. Because
I might have started it, but I didn't. We started it before we like put any out.
Yeah.
We banked like, I don't know, 3 months. First of all, because like I didn't know if it was going to be any good.
Right.
And then I was just like afraid, I wouldn't have enough guests. So it was kind of a process to like get it going.
And so you like kind of put like a package together, and then that way it's like, okay, instead of just like one episode, and then getting into like it was organized.
I mean, organized only so far as like, let's say we did 10 episodes. Like the very first one was with Benji Davis. Mm-hmm. And we actually had like do it again because like, I think I was bad at it, or maybe like the mic was like over
right.
something like where because I'm just a very like tactical person. Like I'm not gonna study. I'm not gonna really prepare.
Yeah.
I just like to do it.
Yeah.
I like to do it and see how it feels and then learn as I go.
Well, I think perfection is the enemy of progress. So a lot of times in life, people, they have great ideas and great visions or whatever, but it's like something you just got to get out and do it. And I've learned that even being in a band. It's like, because I honestly I'm like, I'm like good at talking. I would like to do a podcast thing, but you'll start being like, well, then you start finding these problems, and it's like with the band, dude, I had we didn't even have a band name. You just like start doing it. I literally booked a show and didn't have a band name, but I was like, if we don't have like a date to get to, like, hey, we're playing on the 17th, like we don't have that date, like let's just get up there and embarrass ourselves, and it'll be terrible, but at least we'll know where to go from here.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be perfect, but if you don't just get out there and start, it's not gonna happen.
That's right. You got to start, and I'm lucky that I was able to start and had some really great help from it wasn't just me doing this.
Yeah.
So
you have a great name too, 10-Year Town.
10-Year Town.
It's a good name. I've tried thinking of a podcast name. Has maybe been the number one reason that I don't have a podcast.
Dude, you want to know the true story is that it took from the idea of let's do this, it was at least a year before I could figure out what to do. I was talking to my wife about it all the time. She's very involved in helping with this podcast. And one evening at the kitchen table, it was like, I've got the name. And then from the name, it was like, now I know how to do the podcast.
Right.
Because that is like the information that I wanted when I was moving to town. Is like, I would have loved to have just heard people talk about their journey.
And also you hear the phrase 10-Year Town.
Yeah.
But you don't know what that means because there's no way that I heard that early in Nashville. Like, it's 10-Year Town. It's like, No way. You're a loser if you're not any good.
Yeah, if you don't got it.
Yeah, if you don't got what I got.
Yeah.
But then you realize, like, dude, everyone here is good. Everyone here, oh, you know someone, you have an in, well, that guy has 3 ins. And oh, you've got songs, well, that person has that. And it's like, there's a lot going on in this town.
Yeah.
And it just takes that long to not just, or longer. And even, I mean, some people, especially today, we have in the day of virality, things can happen quick, but I would still say that there's just a long journey of even before that, your life, putting it into songs, and even afterwards, I don't care how successful you are. I think most people until around that time, you have to give it years before you can look back and even know what you're doing. Because I've known some artists that have hit quick, but realistically, like, there's a difference between someone, whatever the success level is, someone that's been doing it for years and someone that's like, went viral a year ago and is on there, that's fine. That's the journey.
Totally.
But it's a process and it is a journey.
Yeah. It's, I think the way that I try and think about it too is it's whether it is the way that you just said, like for some people, it's like a viral moment where it starts really quickly at a high level. For some people, it's like a real slow burn. And then maybe 15 years in, it's like they get their moment. But either side of that, I think of what we do as songwriters, like as a craft, and maybe the first thing you ever make like is the bestseller, but it's still a lifetime practice of like learning and participating and like making this thing that we all love.
Yeah, I mean, because our first album was a #1 album.
And that's
so
crazy.
There were people that definitely could look at it and think that it's like, okay, but it's the saying you spend your whole life working on your first album.
That's right.
And so it's like, yes, we got a record deal a couple years. It took like a couple years to get like from a deal to a #1 album, but it's like, okay, but I was like in my first band when I was like 13 years old. So we're actually looking like 15 years of learning how to be on stage, learning how to play guitar, learning how to write songs, learning how to be embarrassed in front of people, learning what to do if the mic, to where when you're playing a showcase, you're doing something it's like, the preparation meeting opportunity kind of thing. So even if someone hits quick, there's a journey behind that.
No doubt.
It's a long journey.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. How long have you been in town?
So I have an unfair advantage because I am from here, or I'm from outside of Nashville. I grew up in Smyrna, Tennessee. I was all over the place. I had real little Antioch, Laverne, then Smyrna. So that whole down 24.
Yeah.
And so I grew up outside of Nashville, which it's changing now, but it used to really be, I mean, if you were 30 minutes outside Nashville, you might as well have been in a different state. Like you had the city, but then I grew up like on a 2-lane road and literally cows in my backyard and like out in the country, outside the county lines. Like if there was a problem, there were like the county sheriff would have to come out kind of thing. But I was close enough to Nashville that at a very young age, the advantage I had was that I knew there was an industry around what I was hearing. So if I was hearing the radio, if I was, if I knew that there were people that wrote songs for a living, I knew that there was kind of that world of songwriting and artists and record labels. And I kind of had but part of that though was also a disadvantage because I respected it so much. Like I would go to the Bluebird first time I went to the Bluebird, I was in middle school. Yeah. And you're like, oh, these people are good. It's kind of like you want to play basketball, but you've just seen an NBA game. You're like, well, I'll never be able to do that.
Yeah, it's almost discouraging in some way. Yeah. Were your folks like into music or?
Yeah, so my dad was a musician, and my grandma, my mom's side, like it's a musical family. Like I grew up with my dad playing piano and stuff, and he was a musician. And then my mom, she can play piano like a little bit, but her mom, my grandma, was like a really good pianist. Yeah. So I also grew up around that, just like even knowing, like even playing instruments was like I had a piano in my house and I wanted to play guitar, and my parents were like, oh, well, let's get you guitar lessons, that kind of thing.
Right. Were you playing music like just from like everybody else, like piano starting at 5 or whatever? Yeah,
at 4 or 5 I started piano because my mom actually would give piano lessons.
Gotcha.
And so I just started like, literally we'd have like little piano books, and it's funny because she would give piano lessons, but then I would want to do it, and she she
didn't want to teach.
Yeah, well, it's like your mom, so it's different than like she'd sit down and try for like 10 minutes, and I would get distracted and run off. Yeah. But I got an introduction to piano from her at a young age, and my grandma, when I started getting better, my grandma kind of started helping me, and then really I started playing guitar at like 9, and that was when, because piano's cool and piano gives you a great understanding of music.
Yeah.
But guitar is when you can start, like, you hear a song on the radio and you can play, like, one of the first songs I'd learned to play was Free Fallin' Tom Petty, because it's just one chord.
Yeah.
Or the rookie version of it's one chord.
Yeah, the D sus.
Yeah, just D, just that pinky. And I was like, I am a star. Like, I'm playing Tom Petty. Like, I'm Tom Petty. And so that was what fueled, like, oh, that was like the addiction.
So that got you. That was like the bug.
Yeah,
and the rest is history, so to say.
Yeah. And then in high school, I started. I wanted to be a guitarist, but then, like, I had buddies that played guitar. I was like, hey, they love guitar, where I loved music and I loved singing.
Yeah.
And it was like I more started using my guitar to just put chords and notes around what I wanted to say and what I was going through in high school or whatever. So then I started, like, songwriting in high school and just, little high school bands and doing that thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did so after high school, did you go to college somewhere? How did the journey continue?
Yeah, so then I didn't really have a plan because I wanted to do music, but I also was like, my parents were cool. They were going to support me through whatever I did. But it was that thing, like, they had saved up a little bit I had to give, like, some scholarships, and I got, some student loans and stuff. But it was that thing where I realized, like, oh, if I don't go to college, like, I have to get a job. Yeah. And I actually think it'll be easier to work on my music just, like, going to class a few times a day. And I worked some part-time jobs and stuff in college to, like, save up for my life. But but it was, I knew, like, going to college and getting connected to people and just friendships. And I did want to do that. Like, I wanted to kind of, that in between real life and high school, like, I wanted to do that. And then that was I went to school and just kept doing the same thing. I was writing songs and put together some little college bands.
Where were you at school?
So I went to school in Cleveland, Tennessee, a place called Lee University.
Okay.
So I went there, and it's like a religious school. So in the same way, like Belmont, kind of, like, not so much anymore, but Belmont, like, used to be like Baptist, something like that. But there's a religious background to it. Belmont has a great, like, secular music program. Where I went, like, you can do that, but it's a lot of, like, church music.
Okay.
And so being a music major, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be in, like, a choir and do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but there was a studio in Cleveland that actually I went to, like, get an engineering internship. They're like, we don't need that, but we do need, like, a communications, like, PR marketing intern to, like, help write press release and stuff.
Yeah.
So I literally went to my advisor and just, like, made that my major so I could get that internship.
Oh, that's sick.
And then didn't do anything. Like, I just sat in the studio and, like, learned how to run Pro Tools. Like, I wiggled my way in the door.
Yeah, you did not help them with marketing.
No, I mean, and it's like, even, I don't know, I was like 19, 20. What am I gonna do? Like, I'd write a press release, and I don't even know what that means. I'm just like, we have an album coming out, check it out. And I would, like, design a poster or something for a show. They had a little venue, and I would help with that. So I learned how, like, ticket sales go and kind of those deals go, and bringing an artist in, and so I got kind of to see behind the curtain with that too. But and then I actually met Tripp, who's a drummer in Lanco.
Yep.
Met him in college. I was, like, in a little college band. He was in one, and we met at a festival that my college was having, and found we were both moving to Nashville at the same time. I was moving back. And then met the other guys. They went to MTSU, and met them through, I was doing, like, songwriter rounds, and just met them through a buddy that I just met a guy and was like, do you know anyone that plays music in Nashville? So I kind of got involved in the MTSU scene then.
Okay.
Which, like, Hardy was there.
Yeah.
Like, he was in classes with them, and Megan Trainor was there. Like, there was, like, legit people in that
Dude,
little
MTSU's got some star power.
Oh yeah, it's an unsung hero. Everyone thinks Belmont's great.
Yeah.
But MTSU, right down the road, they've got a great program and a lot of cool music coming out of there.
So you moved to Nashville, you're doing the thing, you're writing songs. Was it always in your head? Because I was thinking about this on the way in, like, why a band versus that's kind of different than how everyone else does it.
Yeah, so I mean, it started, I think, so I growing up outside of Nashville, I loved country music, new country music, loved a lot of folk music. Like, when Alison Krauss and Brad Paisley did, like, Whiskey Lullaby, that was, like, because I loved Union Station, that thing, and then I loved Brad Paisley, the guitar and the songwriting, and then Keith Urban, but I like the rock, like the Keith Urban, and then really Eric Church coming on the scene, like when I was in high school. That really started, I loved rock music, but then the country thing like that, and that was the lifestyle I knew. So I loved country music, but a lot of it was I loved rock music, and you had a lot of great Kings of Leon, and in the folk where you had Mumford & Sons and Avett Brothers and the Killers. You had these groups, and I kind of just wanted to be in a group. I don't know, it's kind of like a gang, I just wanted to be like when that gang walks when a group of guys walks in the front door. That was more appealing to me than being like just a dude, and it felt like, I don't know, it just felt like you were like band of brothers kind of thing. So yeah, I just wanted a band. And I also liked the creative element of that. Like, I don't know if I was confident enough myself or wanted to be in a place where I walk in and there's musicians there and I say, this is what we're doing. This, you play that, you play that, you play that. I'd only known, because at high school bands and stuff, I'd only known going into a room being like, this is kind of cool. Like, what do you think? And then someone adds there, oh, that's sick. Okay. Like, oh, dude, what was that beat you were playing? Like, dude, and kind of right into that. And this, like, we're all like creating, we all have different influences and backgrounds and creating this thing from like all of our backgrounds. I don't know, more the collaborative thing I liked.
Yeah. And it just sounds fun.
Yeah.
Like, being in a band sounds awesome. I'm sure like different set of headaches.
Yeah.
But, been doing this a long time and always, with different band members and stuff for myself and my own artist stuff. But like, ultimately, I got to look in the mirror and make the decision. Every decision, it's just whatever I think. And that can be, I don't know. I have no idea if I'm making the right decision. So
and
it's got to be fun to do it with a group of people you've been working with a long time. Yeah,
and it definitely does have its own set of headaches. No doubt. One thing that I've noticed is cool and good is like when it's like this equal thing, you're all in together. The good times are really fun. You get to celebrate, but the good times are fun. If you're a solo artist, you got like everyone's going to be, you get on the bus, so you have something good happen that night, or a great show. Like everyone's pumped because they're all on stage with you. Like there is a collaboration to that. Like even if you're a solo artist, you got your band and they're your guys. The thing that I've noticed that I'm thankful for the band is the hard times. And sometimes it can be too much, because I'll say this. If you're a solo artist and you're paying these guys to be out there and it's your band, but they're looking to you, you're kind of you're the leader. If you've got to kind of be positive, like even if the show isn't good, it's got to be like, well, we'll get them next time, blah, blah, blah. What's interesting with the band, it is like five brothers getting back on the bus being like, dude, what was that? Like, what were you doing over there? And there's this like accountability to like living in reality, or like if a show doesn't go well, there's thing of like, dude, like, what are you, I don't know I literally have never been a solo artist, so I don't know what it's like, but I have a, if like, say someone's like dropping a part, or they're like not hitting the solo, or something's not going well, I imagine it would be the way that I do with like my crew, where it's like, hey, can I talk to you about something real quick? Like, so I've noticed in the past few shows that this is, or with a band, it's literally like brothers being like, bro, what was the deal with like, but I think it makes us better, and it makes us, but when times are hard, when things go down, there's people to vent to about it.
Yeah.
Where like, say that we lost a record deal.
Yeah.
Instead of me having to be like, oh man, I've got to tell my band and I hope they stick with me and I hope I can like provide their, I hope I can pay them, blah, blah, blah. With the band, it's like, hey, let's go get some beers. We got to figure this out. And we're all in it together. It's like, and we can all sit there and complain. We all are on the inside track of the conversations. So we can have, if say something isn't going right on the music business side, we can all be like, well, so-and-so said that, and it's kind of fun. It's the hard times, you get to go through those hard times and kind of vent together.
Yeah, that's really cool. So when this band, when it starts, you're playing shows, like, are you getting kind of interest from the music industry in Nashville immediately, or what did that look like?
No, not at all. So we start off as like, out, so we weren't in, I knew there was a scene. I couldn't even have told you how to crack that, because I didn't go to school in Nashville. I didn't go to Belmont. I didn't, like, that does help.
Yeah.
Like, not only being aware of it, but like kind of having a buddy that like got a publishing deal. I didn't know one person with a publishing deal. We weren't in that scene at all. We were in like the kind of more indie rock band, like 8 off 8th was a thing off the top. Like, we were a country band in the rock world. And so we were with all these rock bands, and we'd get up there and do kind of rock music, but with a country edge to it.
Yeah.
So we had no idea. All I knew is that in rock and roll and in that world, you just like put stuff out and do it indie and try to like get 10 people. We would do a lot of house shows, like try to get 10 people. Then they tell their friends, try to get 50 people. Then try to get, and so we kind of built this like little underground thing between our community and our friends. Between all that, we could start filling a room. And that kind of started, we could play at the time, a high watt, like over on Cannery, like the upstairs room.
Yeah.
We could sell that out between a little thing that we've built.
Oh, wow.
So that was really cool. But that at the time, that wasn't how it was done in Nashville. Like you're supposed to get a publishing deal and then maybe get a few cuts and then there's a showcase, blah, blah. We were doing this like, I don't know, just put music out and like hang up posters and like go to a bar and tell everyone you've got a show and maybe 3 of them come.
Yeah.
And so just this more, but I think that was appealing to labels because it was so different. It was like outside of the machine of the way that things were going. So it was like a very organic growth thing that was getting the attention of labels.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And at some point, like how long into it in terms of time was it before, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
Obviously at some point you ended up working with Jay and with Sony and all
yeah,
that
so
stuff.
that was like parallel. So we were, and this is like the preparation for meeting opportunity. Like we were very lucky or blessed or fortunate, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, you're going to get a shot. You're going to get some door. You're going to get something. And it's, were you prepared for that when the opportunity came along? Because we had been rehearsing, we'd been playing these little house shows. Like we were a band. We knew how to do it. So, but I was writing songs at the time. But like I said, didn't know publishers, didn't know songwriters or anything. Just we were in our own little world. But I was working at Bridgestone Arena, literally selling hot dogs there, and was working at Keith Urban Little Big Town concert and saw Jay walk by, and I'd recognized him because I was a fan of his and was like, who is this guy? So I knew what he looked like.
Yeah.
So I shut down my register and approached him. And just literally the first thing I said was, I knew that like time is valuable. Like you've got one shot. And I was like, man, I'm a big fan. But I wanted to like talk to him. So I instantly asked him a question about like the drums on Creepin' on Eric Church, that record. Like, is that like a loop or is that a sample? Or like, how'd you get that sound, like that snare? Well, he wanted to, people don't usually talk about, they'll just be like, oh, congrats on the Eric thing. He loves talking music though. So we started talking music and we talked for like a half hour and.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah.
So you're working at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah.
Selling hot dogs.
Yeah.
You shut down your register.
Yeah.
And just go. You see Jay Joyce just walking around, just I guess out there.
He was He came in the front door. He was late, so he probably like had a way to get in the back door and like a pass. But I believe it looked like he had just come through the front door because I was near the front and just. He was walking towards like where the backstage would be.
Yeah.
But I just saw him walking, but I was like, that is Jay Joyce. And I was desperate and hungry. Like I didn't know anyone, but it wasn't for lack of trying. Like I'll talk to anybody. And I was like, dude, and I had a line. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. You're going to have to move over to the next. And people were like, what? And I booked it out of there.
Oh my God.
And I was like, hey, Jay. And he was like, I was like, hey, my name's Brandon. I'm just a big fan. Like
Do you have like your name?
I'm wearing a Bridgestone Arena uniform,
Dude,
like a yellow and blue and khakis and a Bridgestone hat. He was like, all right. But I think that was interesting to him, like knowing Jay, like this wasn't at some party or some #1 party or some award show. Like this is a fan. I mean, and he's not an artist, he's a producer. So here's like a random fan coming to and wanting to talk about a snare drum sample. So yeah, we just started talking about music.
Amazing.
And I, felt the conversation lull, like getting to and I was like, well, man, like I'm in a band and I'm a songwriter. And so if there's any way, we could ever connect to get coffee sometime, like I'd love to just hear your insight. He's like, oh yeah, like give my number and maybe we can figure something out. Cause and lo and behold, he was starting a publishing company with Warner Chappell, which I obviously didn't even know what that meant. But, so, maybe he was looking for a writer and, this is weird. Like maybe that's totally something Jay would like, hey, I found my writer. I met him. He was wearing a hot dog uniform. And I eventually called him. And, when I called him, I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. Like, we met. He's like, and he's very to the point. He's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, why are you calling? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, man, like I want to do it all. Like I want to write songs. I want to sell out venues and I want to have hit songs. And he's like, all right, well, come like 3:30 tomorrow, like come over.
Yeah.
And so I went to his studio, and then we had been a band, so we had like photos.
So did you bring the band to the studio?
Not the first time. So, but I brought like a little packet of like music, some demos we recorded.
You were prepared.
Yeah, and we had done photo shoots because we were playing shows. So like we had a logo, it said Lanco, and I'd just done it all myself.
Yeah.
But we had, a little photo of us walking through an alley, and I had some photos. Like, this is the time, dude. Like, at the time, it wouldn't be just like, well, check out my social media. Like, it was hard copy. Like, these are some pictures of some shows we played, and like, these are some songs like on this little burnt CD. But it looked like, oh, you're not coming to me. I don't have to like figure this out. Like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, bring the band in. So then like the next week, the band came in, and we sat up in a circle and just like played through like 4 or 5 songs. Wow. And he literally said, he was like, I don't know what this is or what we're going to do, but I think I should track some stuff with y'all. And the way it worked out was it was like, okay. And then that was the publishing thing, because those producers are expensive.
Yeah.
I literally couldn't even afford rent. Like, I was subleasing and living on a couch. So it's like, I can't afford 30 seconds of this recording studio.
Right.
So the way it worked was like, he signed me to a publishing deal with Warner Chappell, and then kind of like that was his incentive to be like, all right, I'll record it for free, but then if it ever works, I'll, get it on the back end kind of thing.
Wow. It's kind of a sidebar, but have you ever talked to him about the verse 2 entrance of Homeboy and how he got that sound?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't talked about Homeboy. I know there's a harp in there. I don't know if you've ever heard that. There's a harp in there.
I just feel like I think about that production on that song in particular, like pretty often.
Yeah.
More than I should.
Yeah. It's that was when that stuff was happening, it was so revolutionary and so different, and it was in the thick of like the bro country movement.
It was so different,
and what Jay was doing was so different. And it was kind of like, you live and die by that. You live by the sword, die by the sword. You live by that kind of different thing.
Yeah.
And trust me, when we came out, there were people that were like, okay, and it did give us legitimacy at that point. We could play a show, we knew what we were doing, but like the fact we had that in our corner did definitely get the attention of labels. Like, who is this random? I mean, at the time, everyone was trying to work with him. And it was like, who's this random nobodies, no song cuts, no publishing deal. Like, they're just nobodies that now is like going to be a country music band. So that piqued curiosity, and some people loved it. And then some people, I'd hear through the grapevine rumors that just hated it. Like, it was just not like, this is not country music, and this is, and whatever. And at the time we didn't care. We were just day by day trying to make it to another day and play music, play shows.
Dude, that is an amazing story.
Yeah.
Like, you just literally, like, you willed it to happen.
Yeah.
It's like pretty insane. And
that's what I would tell anyone. Like, you put yourself out there, something's going to happen. There's going to be someone's going to, and in today's day and age, it might be a DM, or there's going to be some interest from somewhere.
Yeah.
But when that comes, are you ready to step up to the plate? Like, have you prepared? Like, we had songs like when we went in and did that, when we played him music, I'd already written Greatest Love Story. We were playing that at like little house shows. And so like,
did you play that for him?
Yeah. So that was like part of the 5 that we played for him.
No way.
So we had the song, we had it. It was just, we needed some, we had no one. Like, we were going to, if we were playing a show downtown, like, we might play at the Wild Horse.
Yeah. And
I would like go, try and be like, hey, if you want to come in and like hear our band, like just because I came from that world where like in high school, you'd go to the mall and like try to find people to come to your show that night,
dude.
And so I came from that world of like, you don't even know that there is no machine. There's no access point. You just go out and make it happen one by one, which is a thing that I feel bad sometimes for artists today. Cause back then it was like, dude, I bet we could get 50 people in a room and we could sell our CDs and sell our t-shirts. And like, I bet we could make $1,000. Like, that'd be sick.
Yeah.
Now in today's like digital world, you got to have like 1 million views on something before anyone's batting an eye. And then you got to have it again. And it's just it's a weird world now, but back, it was like the last of, and I don't know, I'm saying that, I still think if you do it the old school way and you still get bodies in a room, I still think that matters.
I think it matters a lot. And I think that some of the virality stuff has like really warped our sense of perspective. Even like now, we did, I don't know, a couple years ago, I did like my first headline tour. Okay, we showed up to like Omaha, Nebraska, and we sold like 180 tickets. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
I'm so pumped, dude.
Yeah.
I'm like calling my mom. I'm like, Mom.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like I'm in my 30s and I'm calling my mom about and essentially like we got done with the tour and the agency was just like, it's not big enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean it's not like this was the first time we ever did it. Like, isn't this how you're supposed to do it? You show up and see, and I don't know. I think it's kind of sad in a way that like the perspective has gotten so warped where like you have to kind of have this like giant spark to get it started, and like there's no indication of whether it's real or not.
I think, well, hopefully there's always a pendulum swinging, like in every industry and everything in life and culture. There's always a pendulum swinging, and definitely what happened with the virality of TikTok is TikTok was definitely the first place. Other than like Twitter, you could have like a viral tweet. Yeah. But Instagram, you could have a viral YouTube video. But TikTok was handing out virality just like randomly. And that was part of their algorithm. Like, they kind of just like would give out, it's like a slot machine. Like they would let some random dance go viral because then that person thinks like, oh, I'm a star now. And now they're going to be obsessed with that app. Yeah. When really you just got like a heads up from, you just got a viral because they know that's part of the secret sauce. But what happened in the industry is that you now have these numbers that are not anywhere else. Like you got 3 million views on that. You got 4,000, like blah, blah, great. But, and the industry definitely went after that hard, like signing viral artists after viral, but then you realize like, oh, I think the industry is realizing there's a difference between engaging someone for 17 seconds on a random app and making someone in Omaha, they're going to get a babysitter, they're going to get off work early, they're going to go home, they're going to shower, they're going to buy the ticket, they're going to find parking, they're going to buy some drinks, they're going to invest their night. It's got to be more than just because they saw 17 seconds of something on an app. Right. And I do think that I've heard enough like through the grapevine, the industry's like realizing that. And because a lot of things like, oh my gosh, you got 40 million views on something. Well, they go out and in the real world, like no one really cares. Yeah. And I mean, cares enough to go see the live because that's not what it is. Like they care enough to maybe follow it on TikTok or engage, but doing well on that app is not the same as having a long, having a little bit on TikTok for 10 seconds is not the same as being Matt Damon or Leonardo DiCaprio. Like they're not the same.
They're not the same.
Now maybe you can build to that and that's great. And that'd be the only thing I would challenge the industry. Like I'm not anti-virality or like, dude, I don't care if you come from a singing show. I don't care if you come from an app. I don't care if you grinded it out in an RV. Whatever your path is to success is awesome. But for the industry to have this narrow, like, oh, it's got to hit 5. It's like, okay, that's great. But, that doesn't mean that it's going to be, not everyone can convert that into ticket sales or to merch or into an album that does really well. And it's just no different. Like not every person that comes off a singing show is gonna, some people are gonna be Harry Styles, but not everyone is. Like, and not everyone, Bailey Zimmerman came off the TikTok thing. Awesome. Great. Rooting for you, dude. Like, let's write. Not everyone is going to be able to convert that though. Right. No different than some people can get 200 people in a room and not everyone's going to be able to convert that to 20,000. So no doubt. But the industry, I think, had to learn in the past few years, like, oh, like 5 million on this app does not mean even 5 people in the real world outside of that app.
Not always.
It is, it is what it is.
I agree. And I wanted to go back for a second. So you're in the studio with Jay Joyce. You do what, like 5, 6 songs? Yeah. I don't remember what you said.
We like that day when we went in there. Yeah, we played like
I just mean like when he cuts.
Oh, when he cuts,
he decides to cut.
Yeah, well, we looked at it. He was putting together his publishing company at the time. It was like, okay, let's make a record. Yeah, and let's see what happens with that record. Okay. So we cut like 10 songs.
Was Greatest Love Story one of those songs?
Yeah.
When you heard that song, did you know that it was going to like change your life, or was it just like another song on the record to you?
Not only was it another song, it was like, we might as well put this one on the record because like it was a super high energy rockin' album. Yeah. And it was kind of like the same in our set. Like, yeah, well, you need one of those where like people can go get a beer and like kind of, like they can go to the bathroom and like we'll have like a chill song in between the chaos because it's a high energy record.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh yeah, but we love, like I loved folk music and Americana and kind of storytelling country music. So honestly, at the time I was like, this might be the only album we ever get. You don't know what's going to happen. So let's have a song on there that's like that. Like I love storytelling country. So like, let's have a storytelling song on there. It's kind of more organic and rootsy. And that'll be like a nice little nod to what we all love and come from, but no one will ever hear it.
Yeah. Oh my God. So how did it end up like going from the record that y'all made to like getting signed and doing all this?
Yeah.
stuff?
So we'd made this record and we didn't just like get a record deal. It was like it still was too weird. And there wasn't enough of what the industry had gone off of. Like I didn't have 5 cuts with it. Like I wasn't a songwriter. And so, people were kind of dancing around the car. Like I'd get coffee over and over and over with these labels and be like, what are we doing? Like, and so we got an RV and just printed CDs of our record. We have like a Jay Joyce album. And we were just indie, and we would just burn the CD. We got these little cardboard things that I bought at Staples, and I ordered a Lanco stamp, and we would stamp Lanco on it and put in a little cardboard thing and sell it at shows. And we'd play to 15 people. We'd go to Indianapolis and go to Athens and Atlanta and pretty much the Southeast.
Yeah.
And play bars and try to sell our CD. And like I said, we kept doing that, but then we'd play Nashville every now and then. We'd keep coming back. And then we did started getting in the writing world and started like making connections and started going to Whiskey Jam. We played Whiskey Jam and started doing that little thing where just building a little fan base enough to where we were like, all right, we're not going to get a record label. We're not like none of that's happening right now. Like they're not going to sign us, but we have an album. Let's just put it out and let's start with a single. So we had a song called Troublemaker and XM was going to play it. So like, well, let's do like a big show, like album release or single release. Let's do a single release and we'll just book it ourselves. So we did a thing at the High Watt and that sold out. And they're like, I mean, cause we had we had enough like, people,
real
fans.
fans.
Yeah, and they were coming out. And I was getting calls before we were going on stage like, hey, like Universal's here and they can't get in. So I started going to my friends and asking them to leave because they were at capacity. And I was like, dude, and they're like, hey, Warner's, and dude, all these labels showed up. And dude, it was not to this day, some people are like, I was at that showcase. Dude, that was not a showcase. That was none of y'all wanted to be there. None of y'all were into it.
Wow. We
made a show and then it turned into a showcase because I don't know. I mean, and I had a team, like we had an agent at that time. We just got an agent. They did a good job of like telling labels like, hey, come to this thing.
Yeah.
And I think when those labels came out and like no one was involved, there was no label and they were like, okay, y'all, like, what is that? Like, I think they were even thinking like, okay, so we don't have to do as much work. Like, but we played that show and walked into our green room and Sony Records was there and on the spot, they're like, hey, we'll give you a record deal right now. And so that just happened.
Dang.
Yeah, crazy. And then, but it was a few more years after that before Love Story hit. I mean, you still
did y'all like have to like go recut stuff?
No, we didn't recut. But then you're like, oh, now you're playing the big leagues. Like you need
the politics, dude.
Yeah, you got to get photos. You got to meet all the people in the marketing team, and you got to do a radio tour, and you got to have new photos and new branding, and you got to now it's not in a cardboard box. You got to have a distributor and. It's got to go out to stores and it was just a lot. So it took a couple years to go from like that moment to getting these 10 songs. There's still people out there that every now and then will hit us up and still have the original.
That's sick.
But to get this album now going from a little cardboard pamphlet to like in a store and on the DSPs, that takes time. It still takes time.
Sure.
Then that happened.
Wow. So did Troublemaker end up being the first single, or was it Greatest Love Story? Like as far as to like terrestrial radio?
Troublemaker never went to terrestrial. We did an XM run with that, and it did well on XM. And then we actually had "Long Live Tonight" was technically our first terrestrial single.
Gotcha.
Because at the time, dude, even the label, no one was thinking Greatest Love Story. Everyone, because we had a really high energy show. We did things that people in country music were not doing at the time. Like I'd go in the crowd and hit this tom drum, and like I was crowd surfing.
Yeah.
And like that stuff wasn't happening at the time. And so it was really high energy. So they were like, hey, we need a high energy single to and so we put Long Live Tonight out. Long Live Tonight was our first terrestrial single out. And it got to like top 40s. And then in that run, organically, like on DSPs and stuff, like Greatest started having this organic moment where it was like, hey, this song, like people are starting to sing it at the show, and people are starting to download it and stream it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a switcheroo. Like they didn't finish the Long Live Tonight run. They were like kind of a bait and switch, like just
just swap them out.
Yeah, that's kind of what they did. But so yeah, Grace was technically the second terrestrial single.
Wow.
And there were people, I mean, I'll say this, talking about politics, there were people at the label, someone at the label said, if you put this out, like you have huge potential. If you put that song to radio, it will be the last song that you ever have to go to. Like it will not work, and it will tank your career.
Wow.
And then ended up being a multi-week number one, and
they were kind of wrong.
5 times platinum. Yeah. So can't always listen to the people in the office chairs.
And you wrote that by yourself, is that right?
Yeah.
So was that like pretty life-changing? I mean, you were talking about like you were like subleasing a couch basically, and then like all of a sudden, like I imagine that did very well for you.
Yeah. Oh, definitely life change. I mean, giving a record deal, like even getting like $15,000. It's like what? Like for an advance, you know? Like just was like, are you kidding me? And so yeah, it was definitely life changing. I had been, dating a girl since I was a teenager for a long time, but I, had nothing to my name and didn't want to get into a marriage with that. So at that time, I kind of like could do real life things. I could, got married and get a house.
Yeah.
And just because it's not, I'll say this, like no matter what people think about music, you're not buying a private jet, and you now are just normal. You have enough money. You're like
caught up to to your buddy that did accounting.
Yeah, exactly. Like in after taxes, you're right there. You're like, oh, cool. Like I also have a car payment now. Like awesome. Could do some real life stuff, and then we toured. That also was life changing. It was like for the first time I felt like my friends that had spent years at an ad agency or like working as an attorney or a paralegal, like those kind of things. It was like, oh yeah, hey, next round's on me.
Yeah.
Like I can buy a round of beers.
I love that.
And so yeah, got married and bought a house and could do all that because I now had this living. Music was making me a living, and then closed on the house, got married, we got pregnant, and then all that was gone because the world shut down and touring was gone and it was all. So right when I felt like I'd had it together, then it was over.
Yeah.
So that was
COVID happened.
Yeah, COVID.
I was thinking like it's been you guys are about to put out a new record like very soon.
Yeah.
Like 17th or something.
Yeah, like a few days.
So it has been like some time in between. I mean, I know you've put out some like songs and music in between then, but as far as like albums, like it's been like what, like years, right?
Yeah, it's been years.
What, I guess, like, I don't know, what took so long?
What happened? Yeah, our debut album came out in 2018, debuted at number 1, and it is 2025, and this will be our sophomore album. What happened? How much time do we have? We put out our album and we're doing the cycle. Put out an album, toured it, went to UK, toured it, sold tickets, UK, headline Australia, Canada, United States, selling out. I mean, dude, rocking. Like just absolutely. I mean, when I say selling tickets, like went from playing to 5 people in a bar to like thousands of tickets, like just crushing. New Group of the Year winners, Group of the Year nominee. Like, dude, I mean, it's just happening.
Yeah.
We then are writing. We're writing on the bus, come back home, just writing. We had a second album. It was ready to go.
Yeah.
Put out our first single from that second album, What I See. It got number 1 most added over Carrie Underwood. Number 1 most added. It is in the 30s. Like it's happening. And then we were sold out Green Bay, sold out Chicago, sold out Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, I wake up that morning on the tour bus and people are packing their bags. And there's this virus that is in California, but it's like maybe spreading. So we're going to take a few weeks off before we come back to Minneapolis. That ended up being years before we got back to Minneapolis. So during that time, no one's listening to the radio. So programmers are like, they're not going to play a newer band in the third, like they're playing Tim McGraw and Taylor Swift and just like, so our song gets pulled off the charts. TikTok comes along. people are dancing on it. I remember downloading the app. You know, when you first get on the app, it's just like whatever. They just like try to throw you whatever the best of. And it was all dancing. And I was like, what do you want me to do on this? And honestly, like long story short, depending on how much you want to get into it, we truly had a second album to go, a tour, like we were ready to go. And the label literally said, we're not putting out, like we don't even know if we're going to put out albums anymore. And we're not putting out anything until you're viral on TikTok.
Damn.
And then we weren't going viral because we had no idea what to do. We had a really good show and a really good album and knew how to like do the music thing.
Don't need any of that anymore.
Yeah, which they said, it doesn't have to be music. Like, can you cook? Like, we had a meeting. We literally had a meeting, and the meeting was Brandon's talents. That like and I got like inside information that they had their own meeting on like, and it was on the board like, what are Brandon's talents? Not like songwriting or playing music, but like, is he good at cooking? Could he do like, is he a good dancer? Is he like funny? Could we do like some comedy? Like, and then like, could their wives, like, does his wife dance? Like, they want to know if my wife would do dances. And unless like one of those things happen, then you don't get your album.
Dude, that's insane.
And so, like nothing ends up coming out. And they literally were like, well, you're lazy. Like, that's what's happened. Like, and we were trying. We just didn't know, like, what are you... Also, it was during the pandemic, so I remember one time we like did a few videos with all of us, and we started getting slammed for not isolating and not quarantining. So I was like, "Okay, what do you want us to do?"
Yeah.
And so they ended up shelving that album. We got booted off the label and have to start all over. So we did that. Start writing again. Go out and try and tour. It literally is starting over, like independent self-releases, waiting to try to get a record deal. And then we got another record deal and have a record label now that's going to help us put this music out and got a great album. But once again, it takes time. It takes time to start all over.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pumped. I'm pumped for the new record.
Me too.
After this long detour.
Yeah, quite a detour.
Well, dude, you guys like really do have such an amazing show. I've seen a lot of your shows from side stage and in attendance, and like you do have this like really engaging stage presence that I think is actually, like you said, kind of rare for the country music format. Where did you like? I don't know. Where'd it come from? Is that just inside you? Did you like did you grow up like watching like certain frontmen, or like what was your...
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I think there's incredible artists and frontmen in country music. And because of that, you kind of have to find your thing. It's like, hey, I can't shred like Brad Paisley or Keith Urban. Eric Church is really great at that, beat your chest and like very testosterone, like I'm gonna rip this place down, and I love that. It's like, hey, I could pull a little bit from that, like I can do that, but he's got that thing. And then there's even guys like, I'd say, even though he just stands there with his arms on his guitar, I think George Strait is incredibly engaging.
He's magnetic.
He just has a magnetism towards that. You're just pulled towards him. So when you're looking, you're okay, I want to be the guy behind the microphone. Like, here's all these different, what do they do?
Yeah.
And what could I do? I think that it was a combination of all. I think that growing up listening to country and rock music, I'll say I loved country music, but seeing Bruce Springsteen and then when you get into high school and I'm listening to like Cage the Elephant and I'm seeing that dude just go nuts and climb things and crowd surf. And it's like, what if someone did that vibe in country? Like Brad Paisley ain't doing that. He's not climbing anything, like kind of the punk rock world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid even, like I didn't know if I was a good singer as a kid. I still don't know if I'm a good singer, but I didn't think like, I wasn't like 12, 13 being like, I have vocal cords that will bless anybody. Like I didn't know. I just like to sing.
Yeah.
But I remember, this is so random, seeing a thing of the Rolling Stones and seeing Mick Jagger. And at this point though, I was old enough to like know what good singing is and what is. And I didn't know if he sounded that good, but I thought he was awesome. And I was like, oh, so like even if like you're not the this operatic, like great singer, like if you just like have a thing, have a vibe and you just care, like it's cool. And so I don't know, I think I took little pieces of different artists that I thought were just engaging and I just believed them. Like I believed that Mick Jagger couldn't get no satisfaction. They're just words on, if you just show me like, dude, I got the song idea, I can't get no satisfaction, that's cool. But when Mick Jagger sings that and dances around on stage, you're like, man, that guy, he's really believing. I can't get no satisfaction. Like, there's just and Eric Church was good at that too. I saw Eric Church in a theater in 2011 or something, maybe like before he had hit big, and he believed it. Like, Boss Man can shove that overtime up his can.
Yeah,
I had a boss too, and I believed Eric. Like, Boss Man, shove that overtime up his can. All you got to do. That, it's not the most revolutionary lyricism, but when the artist takes the lyric and delivers it, and I believe they believe it, now they're singing my anthem. Like, there's someone else out there that feels the way about their boss that I do. And so to me, early on, it was like, if you're going to sing these things, you got to get up there and believe it. Because the crowd believes it.
Right.
And that's why they're there. So you better believe it as much as them, even if you had an off night or whatever. Dude, believe it.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's hard to convey. That's one thing. That's like what I like doing, what I think great artists are good at. That's hard to convey digitally, like that. It's just, that's a thing that has been interesting to watch. Like, that on stage belief, you feel it in a concert.
Dude, I think that there's like there's a few artists that I've seen in my lifetime where like, that you're never gonna fully understand it until you see them live.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
because like, as good as their records sound, it's not like there's anything wrong with their records. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of like, I don't know. Stapleton's records sound amazing, and seeing him live, it's like amazing. But even like Brandi Carlile is like, her records are so good, but like seeing her live is like, it's, I don't even know. It's like a religious experience.
Yeah. Well, I would say that. I don't even know if you have to like think of an example, because technically I think that should be, if you look at like why we have recorded music.
Yeah.
All recorded music didn't exist till the early 20th century. It all was live.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, man, that is so cool live. What if we could take like the live thing and people could listen to it in their homes? So that's always what it is. The like Stapleton, his record sounds good, but the reason it sounds good is because if you're in the room with him,
it's amazing.
Yeah. And so a record is just trying, that's what people forget. Like, a record is just, it's real life people. Yeah. Like, I think that in today's automated AI crazy digital world, we forget. And because you can fake everything, like you could have AI come up with a guitar, but you forget that like this all comes from someone's hands, like someone's fingertips. Like I know in like the EDM or even pop world, like maybe things can be samples and could all be computer, but the reason music is so special is because like when you're hearing Stapleton, like it's not an imaginary thing. It's not an AI. Like there's really a guy out there in Nashville that has this voice, and he just recorded it, and now you're listening to it in your car, but it's a real person. And if you ever get to see the thing that is trying to be replicated on the record, a record's just a replication of whatever literally guys got in a studio and did it live, and then sound waves were recorded, and now you get to hear it. But the live thing is always always special.
It's amazing. Well, there's so much we didn't get to, which we'll have to have you back. But before we go, I always like to ask people if you had like a piece of advice, and you've given so much great advice, by the way, but if you had a piece of advice that you could give to younger you just getting started on your journey, what would you say?
Well, we have a song on our new album called If I Could Have a Beer with Younger Me.
There you go.
And it kind of goes down this route. And the reason that song was hard to write and that question is hard to answer is because as we were writing that song, it was like, okay, well, but what advice even would I give my younger self? Because some of the mistakes I made led me to where I am, But
Damn.
One thing that I would say is that, now I'm just thinking the worst. I start singing the chorus, which is "Don't stop trying, keep on fighting." But it is that thing of like, it isn't when things aren't going well, it isn't as bad as you think it. Like it's not the end of the world, and there's tomorrow, and you have a great community, and you have a great support system. At the end of the day, your music has impacted so many people, and you got into this to like from day one. You got into it to record something, put in a little cardboard box, and when one person bought that CD, you were pumped because you knew that you had worked so hard on something, and on the ride home, they were going to hear it. And so stay honest to that, and don't get distracted by the nonsense and the metrics. The whole town's fake. Like, and I don't mean that like in a personality way. Like, what is Music Row? Like, it's all just people working jobs. They have mortgages. They go to work. Yeah. They're just trying. They're trying their best. They're not, they're not oracles with the answer that has come from the music gods of Most High. No, they're just people. They go golf and they're trying to figure it out. Don't let them get you down. Create and know that your music is impacting you all. You're in control because you always can create and you can always impact people with your music, whether it's one person or a million people. And just stay true to that and don't get distracted by the noise, and just keep writing and keep and every moment that you're spending worried about something or having anxiety, channel that into what you can control, which is being a good friend, be a good husband, be a good father, love people, be kind. At the end of the day, 100 years from now, that's what matters anyway. So,
dude, I think that's like the best advice anyone's ever given on this pod.
Oh, well, wait till you have me back. I've got even better advice. No.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuretowne.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenuretown community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.